Good morning, and thanks for joining our session. I hope you're enjoying our federal forum and the ability to network with ServiceNow customers, partners, and staff. Last year's federal forum was the first ServiceNow event I attended, and unfortunately, the last in-person one I could go to. I can't wait to have these events in person so we can, once we get through this pandemic. There will be a networking block after this session. But now let's dive into what ServiceNow and Accenture Federal have put together in dealing with the NIST risk management framework. I'm Brian Myers, a risk solution executive from ServiceNow's risk practice. I'm joined by Will Coffey, a senior solution architect for Accenture Federal Services. Good morning, Will.
Good morning, Brian. Thanks for having me.
Sure. ServiceNow has developed an approach to improving compliance and providing real security for FISMA systems. We call it Continuous Authorization and Monitoring, or CAM. Accenture adds their customer-centric approach to provide the Cyber Assurance Integrated Framework, or CAF. Will and I will discuss both of these over the next 30 minutes. If you have specific questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat window, or you can stop by our virtual booth during the forum. We'll be talking about the NIST risk management framework, but like all risk frameworks, it's designed to normalize security controls across enterprises. That's easily said, but difficult and labor intensive to carry out. So let's get started with the agenda. Today's agenda is pretty straightforward. We're going to start with talking about the how and why of managing IT risk, the challenges of meeting NIST RMF, and specifically about CAM, and then the Accenture's CAF, and then the results that we've seen from there. Let's start with the how and why of managing IT risk. For federal departments and agencies, the why is easy. They're mandated to follow the RMF and provide regular FISMA reporting to the Office of Management and Budget, who then reports it to Congress. The how is where things get really complex. NIST 837, currently on Rev 2, is the special publication that outlines the framework for risk management, including appendices. It's over 160 pages of requirements and suggestions. But it includes references to 853 for boundary controls, 80137 for continuous monitoring. So NIST provides this incredible library of specialized information. It's all very valuable, but it takes a lot of time and effort to understand and follow their suggestions. Now, implementing RMF usually falls under the auspices of these two leaders, the CIO and the CISO. And both, as we know, are heavily tasked, understaffed, with their primary goal of supporting the agency missions, but also managing the people, architecture, systems, and transformation. Add into that the governance and compliance, and you've got a real full-time job. So let's talk about those full-time jobs. I pulled these charts from an Educase Center for Analysis and Research report published in 2016. And the authors did a work breakdown study of a typical leader supporting higher education. They normalized the workday to 8 hours, since we know CISOs and CIOs only work 8 hours a day, to try to understand what was driving them. CIOs are spending the biggest portion of their time managing IT, but planning was the next biggest box. Transformation in the federal space is chewing up that time. For the CISO, security leadership is the biggest block. You expect that. But next is security policy, compliance, and audit. But if you add the governance, privacy at the bottom of the arc, covered by RMF umbrella, it becomes the biggest part of his workload by far. So Will, you're engaged with both civilian and DoD environments. Are you seeing this as well?
This is exactly what we see. It's a pretty common scenario where most of the time spent, especially in the integrated risk spectrum, is around RMF, is around things like ATO or ANA or continuous monitoring. CISOs and CIOs together are both responsible for different parts of that spectrum, but they really do have to work hand in hand in order to help identify and manage and understand what the risk profile looks like. And in order to mitigate that risk, they have to work together to be able to resolve across the IT spectrum. Understanding where those risks lie, how those risks fit within the technology ecosystem that they live in, and where risk lives and how it's resolved and mitigated and prioritized for remediation is something that across the board, it takes a lot of time and a lot of focus from every part of the agency, not just the CIO and CISO shop, but the system owners responsible for it, and the people that are responsible for maintaining and implementing the controls that go into it. So absolutely agree. Yes.
Thanks, Will. So moving on to the next slide, really we're talking about the challenges still, but as we started building the solution for RMF, we asked people like Will, we reached out to customers and partners, CISOs and their staffs, and CISOs are literally being pulled in 5 different directions: collecting evidence, documenting, monitoring, tracking, reporting. We found lots of manual processes with little or no visibility, tracking spreadsheets, and tools that really didn't integrate well. One DHS CISO told me that his automating the ANA process, getting to what he called automated authorization, was his holy grail. He retired before he got there, but getting that an authorization to operate takes too long inside the federal government. Some agencies use 18 months as a target to get a system online, and that's after they pay for the system and are paying for the services around the system. In today's transformation-driven hybrid cloud environment, this pace just seems unacceptable. It's holding back projects at agencies that help them meet their missions. Another issue, we understand, everybody knows security professionals are stretched thin with gaps of thousands of open jobs in the federal area alone. One of our goals is to remove the mundane but very necessary tasks inside of the workflows to avoid burning out these critical cybersecurity resources. No one got into cybersecurity to complete these ATO packages, but too many valuable hours are being spent in building and maintaining them. So the third challenge we went after was really in monitoring. So system security plans are often approved, and NIST gives you 3 years. We know boundaries for most systems aren't static like that. So for a secure system, a system where sensitive data is held, this static approach would seem to invite security issues. Our solution moves more towards continuous monitoring. NIST is moving towards continuous monitoring with 800-137. And by monitoring key controls automatically and using risk-based scoring to triage events and make use of scarce resources to drive both cybersecurity and compliance. So Will's got some really good numbers, white paper that we're going to talk about in a little bit. But let's keep driving here. So when our product team and Will was helped drive these looked at NIST RMF, we saw workflows that like Will said, cross silos and had repetitive steps and requirements. Lots of times we're being lost because ISSOs and system owners didn't have a single method of communications, and tasks weren't being tracked. So our product team distilled the NIST RMF requirements into policy statements and controls. They defined common personas and roles. They mapped workflows using data that's already present a lot of times in a CMDB that could be populated into the application. Then they deduplicated steps and suggested controls and control tests. So what that looks like is as an ISSO completes the steps in a workflow, the output is a risk summary for the FSMA system, a full understanding of risk that he can present to the authorizing official. And the authorizing official understands what risk he's adding to his enterprise. But with all of that collected data, the ISSO is also able to click a button and publish a system security plan. So a very time-consuming piece of his day, putting together a 200, 300-page security plan, now comes with a push of a button. For CISOs, they can track progress a lot better. So because of the dashboarding capabilities we offer, we'll show them in a little bit. We can track both ATOs as well as plan of actions and milestones in the same system. So, Will, I know we've talked a lot about CAM. So, can you talk about what CAF is adding here?
Yeah, so CAF really enhances the continuous authorization and monitoring module that ServiceNow offers. We're looking at ways that we can integrate with a platform that allows us to give a broader set of capabilities, but two, a more enhanced set of capabilities around specifically steps 1, 3, and 6. So when we're defining system boundaries and we're defining information types and we're going through system categorization, those things become much more efficient and easier to do when you combine CAM and CAF together, because it's taking those information types, automating those, deriving what the actual system impact is. From that impact, it's then deriving the controls, the control objectives that you would use based on that system impact, and then moving into the A&A process. Those things that take a long time, like Brian said, it takes about 18 months traditionally for systems to gain their ATO. But a lot of those are because of the manual processes that are in line with defining what your system information types are, defining what the confidentiality, integrity, availability of each one of those information types are, how that impact sets up the system impact, and then how that dictates the control objectives that you're going to go to seek authorization for. But when you bring those together through efficient workflow and automation using ServiceNow, the continuous authorization and monitoring piece, as well as the CAF piece, it really accelerates all of that so we can start achieving ATO and time to value much, much quicker. And we just enhance that CAM capability with our CAF piece by driving down into more of the weeds and helping automate and create more efficiencies within that process.
That's great to hear, Will. And so let's look at a couple of the dashboards. And this is the CISO level dashboard where he can see not the work in progress, right? How his ATOs are, how many ATOs he's responsible for, which ones are overdue, which ones are coming up for solution, which one of his ISSOs is working on it. He can drill down into each of these data items and determine where they are in the process. So on the right-hand side of the screen it's all about POAM. So plan of action and milestones is a critical portion of it, of an ATO package. It's the pieces that the ISSO are going to take and make sure they're working on even after the authorization to operate. So the CISO can now monitor the POAM, make sure all of those individual milestones are being met. Will, are you seeing CISOs pick up these dashboards and use them as is, or are you seeing a lot of changes to them?
So I think traditionally what we're seeing is people are using the dashboards as is because they're not used to having them. So the availability of the data transparency that they're getting through using this module is new to them. Once they start using it, they start getting used to the information that's there. Then they start asking for configuration changes or updates or more data or tweaking the data a little bit to visually represent it slightly differently. But what we see is initially people just like to see what they have, what they didn't see before. So they're into the dashboards. They really like it. And I know that we have dashboards for different personas. So not just your CISO view, which you're showing, but you have your AO view and your system owner view and all those things. And those people that traditionally didn't have any insight into the process or how things were progressing or the ability to track the tasks, it's a new and really refreshing view for them. So they love it. I love it personally. I mean, we use it a lot too when we're supporting these things. So having the ability to just point to the dashboard has been a really great thing.
Yeah, great. So let's look at one more dashboard, and this is more about those continuous controls we talked about. So in the past, if a system had a control or a solution had a control, it was very hard to understand that if I have a control failure, how it affects the enterprise overall. But what we can do inside of ServiceNow, because we have all of the data together, is we can look at those controls across the enterprise and the effect of those. So we can put heat maps on here. Wills does great heat maps. He can really tell you a great story with these. But what we're talking about in this heat map is the criticality of a control against the system criticality. Right. So the first set of controls there, and it might be a little hard to read on your screen, is what didn't take place at a data center. And that's going to be, sure, we need fire suppression. NIST requires fire suppression as part of the inherited controls for the data center. Absolutely a good control, but probably not as critical as the second set of controls. Second set of controls we used as an example are if a firewall that a set of firewalls that an enterprise is using is out of date. It's more than 2 revs out of date. Now you've got a real issue. Now you can see where those firewalls sit inside of your organization, and you can see which FISMA boundaries those firewalls are being used to control. So those are just 2 samples of controls that you can monitor in real time, automatically and have mitigations put in place in real time. So Will, I know I've taken a lot of the time about this. I'd like you to talk about the results you're seeing at CAF, and I'm going to switch to a slide I pulled from your white paper that you published.
Yeah. So these are some really great results that we've had. So CAF is really a combination of 3 things. It's people, process, and technology. And when we combine the process of governance with the technology that we have from ServiceNow, we've been able to really help bring some incredible value in transition to our customers. If you're looking within these areas, especially when we start talking about the timeframes of 6 months, 18 months, all those things for ATO achievement and for A&A, when we're talking about reducing A&A or time to ATO by 50%, that's a huge change. That's a huge shift in how organizations are able to achieve and start recognizing the value of their technology investments. Accelerating A&A package development and ATO approval by 75% is really something that's, it gets to the heart of what we're trying to do with CAM and CAF. We're trying to accelerate that package creation. We're trying to accelerate the implementation. We're trying to help people understand how they can quickly start to recognize and use their technology in a cloud environment. So whether they're bringing in new services or new capabilities or adding something to an existing authorization boundary or to a new technology boundary, it doesn't matter. We're able to get you there quicker using these different processes. And when we talk about how to do that, a lot of what's happening is concurrent authorizations or concurrent assessments at the same time. So we're able to do more authorizations in a shorter amount of time. So when we talk about doing 17 information systems within 3 months, these processes that we're bringing with CAF help to streamline the capability and help to streamline the ATO and A&A process. And it really just gets to the level where now we've streamlined it, we can do more at the same time, and we can start getting major applications submitted and reviewed and authorized much, much, much quicker. And then we can start bringing that time to value way down, which is where these huge metrics of cutting things in half and cutting things down by 75% come in. A lot of these customers are huge organizations. They're department level organizations across the government. And these are real significant impacts for how they're able to get work done in their cloud environment.
Thanks, Will. And I really appreciate your partnership in bringing CAM to life and adding CAF to it to add even more value to it. So that kind of takes us to the end. As we wrap up, a quick reminder, there's a 5-minute transition break before our final round of technical breakouts. So please take the opportunity to stretch your legs a bit. Final round of breakoffs will kick off at 11:30 a.m. Eastern. Thanks again for your time. I look forward to meeting with you during or after our forum here. Thanks again.